Hello everybody. I have not really been on booktube very much at all recently. I kind of stopped making actual wrap-up videos kind of 2 years ago almost. And I've dabbled a little bit here and there with posting an odd video. For the most part, it's really been a long time since I was actually posting booktube videos. But I don't know, I'm kind of in the mood to get back into it. I have a little bit of time to get back into it right now, so I'm giving it a go. And I figured that it would be kind of nice for me to do a video of the best books that I read since I stopped posting about books that I was reading. I still have been reading books in that time. I just haven't been making booktube videos about them. It's way too many books at this point for me to do a full wrap up to catch you up. That would be absurd. But I'm just going to talk about 10 books today that are the absolute best books that I read in that time. We'll go kind of in chronological order. So longest time ago up until most recent. And so the first book that I have on my list is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I actually started reading this for a reading vlog that I think I just have to officially scrap. It was so long ago. I started it. I was kind of dipping in and out, and I just it's too much footage. I just can't put it together into a cohesive vlog at this point. But I was doing a reading your recommendations video because I did ask you guys for book recommendations of books that you think that I personally would really like, and I got a lot of recommendations. I read a bunch of them. I vlogged some of it, and Mexican Gothic was one of the recommendations I got, and I did love this book. This is pretty popular. You've probably heard of it, but it is about this woman, and she kind of gets the call to go check on her cousin, I think. I mean, it's been a while since I read it at this point. She goes to this manor where her cousin lives with her husband, and it's a little creepy, and she's acting weird. The main character wants to figure out what's going on. She uncovers a lot of stuff. It was really good. I think that this is inspired by Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It definitely has those vibes. It's very Gothic. I mean, duh, it's called Mexican Gothic. It just has that vintage creepy feel to it. I think it takes place in the 50s. The writing was really good. It was really immersive. It was very creepy at points. I would consider this to be a horror novel. There are moments in it that were deeply horrifying. It was really good. I absolutely loved it. I don't really pick up horror, but I'm trying to get into it more, and that to me was a good entry point. I hadn't really read too much horror before that, and I loved that book, so yeah, it worked really well for me. Next up, we have a middle grade duology. It is 2 books, and I absolutely loved both of them. The first one is called The War That Saved My Life, and then the second one is called The War I Finally Won, both by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And this is World War II historical fiction, which is not my jam, but these books were really, really good. Some things that are my jam are found family, and that was very present in this novel. It is about these 2 kids who have an abusive mother. The main character has a club foot, and so she is basically locked away, and her mother is ashamed of her. She doesn't let her go out in public or do anything because she has a limp and a deformed foot. She and her little brother end up joining a program in the UK where they sent all of the children into the countryside because they thought they were getting bombed and everyone was going to die living in the city. So they sent all the kids that lived in London to be fostered in families' homes in the country. And the main character and her little brother end up with this woman who is on her own personal journey. The relationship between them is so good. The way that these books depicted these characters working through their own trauma, their own hurt, and learning to love each other and care for each other was really, really good. I'm a sucker for that. I absolutely loved this duology. I would highly, highly recommend it if you like emotional, hard-hitting, middle grade fiction, especially if you are into the found family trope. would 100% recommend these. They were so good. Next up, I have the sequel to Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It came out pretty recently, and so I read it. It's called Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Alire Sainz. The first book, Aristotle and Dante, is one of my all-time favorites. I've read it, I think, 3 or 4 times now, and I just love it. It's a really, really good coming-of-age sort of slice-of-life book about identity and boyhood. Main character is growing up in the 80s in Texas. This book just continued that story. I was actually pretty apprehensive about this book because I feel like a lot of the times when a sequel comes out, that wasn't like really planned, especially one that comes out like way after the first book did. It just doesn't live up to the magic of the first book. And I honestly wasn't expecting to like this very much, but I did. It immediately just like hit all of the same like emotional sort of points, the same writing style, the same voice. It was just really, really vibrantly carrying the story forward. And I absolutely loved it. So like everything that I loved about the first book, I loved in the second book. It just hit exactly right. It starts to deal with like different topics and different heavier stuff, especially like with the time period that it takes place in, which is the 1980s. And it was so good and I loved it. And I was like so pleasantly surprised by it. I don't know what else to say. Like if you've read the first one, I would absolutely continue with the second book and it will be just as good. Next up on my list is Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. This is like, I guess, a classic. It's not really that well known. It's from 1912, so it's an older book. I got into this book because I got into the musical Daddy Longlegs. There is a pro shot of the musical Daddy Longlegs. I watched it. I fell in love with it. It is such a good, underrated musical. It's so cute and sweet and just perfect, and I love everything about it. It is the story of this girl who grew up in an orphanage. Some anonymous person has sponsored her like education to continue, so somebody is paying for her to go to like secondary school now that she's turned 18 and is no longer able to live in the orphanage. And so she writes this person letters. They never respond, but like the whole story is her letters that she writes to this person that she calls Daddy Longlegs. There's a whole story behind it, but she calls this benefactor Daddy Longlegs. She writes him letters, and you just like see her grow. And it's just so sweet. Like the main character of this book and the musical is like genuinely one of the most like precious, like sunshine, like adorable, perfect angels. Like I just adore her. The musical I absolutely fell in love with, and so I wanted to read the book that it was based on, and so much of the musical is just like directly taken from the book. I was just like so enamored with the book, seeing like the source material and like seeing how much of like the spark of the characters, how many like specific phrases that were really funny and lovely like were directly from the book. Like it was just so charming. I will say that I do like the musical a little bit better. I think that it develops a few things that are like slightly weaker in the book slightly better, but overall like highly recommend the musical, highly recommend the book. If you want something that is tender and sweet and easy to read, it was really cute. Next up we have Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This is YA historical fiction about this protagonist who is growing up in the 1950s, I believe, during like the Red Scare. She lives in Chinatown in San Francisco. She is Chinese, and she is kind of discovering she is probably a lesbian, and she starts going to the Telegraph Club, which is a lesbian like nightclub. It's very, you know, taboo and not okay for this to exist within society, but it's like very much about her connecting to her identity, like discovering things about herself, like discovering people like her, and like feeling that like connection and like being seen by other people and seeing yourself in other people. It was so good. The emotional like center of this book, I was so there, like 100%, just like got how she was feeling. So many things about this book were like very affirming, painful, but like so beautiful. It was really good. This is, I think, a pretty highly acclaimed, pretty popular novel. So I think a lot of people will have heard of this one and have been fans of this one already. But yeah, I am joining the groups of people who loved this book. I thought it was excellent, excellent young adult fiction, like a fantastic coming of age story, and like just like a beautiful, beautiful book about identity. The actual like historical setting was really well done and really interesting, and it contributed like a lot to the book. Pick it up if you have not already read it for whatever reason. Next up on my list is Ace by Angela Chen. This is a non-fiction book about asexuality. I was kind of blown away by how much I loved this book. It was really well written and like accessible, like very easy to consume and understand, but it never felt like it was surface level. It was extremely well done. It was very thought-provoking, like very well researched. Everything that she like discussed was extremely well rounded, extremely well thought out and displayed and like communicated. I thought it was really, really well done. And this book just like truly makes you think so much about sex and sexuality and consent and like bodily autonomy and like so many things about all of those broad topics. It was really, really, really crucial reading in my opinion. I thought it was so good. It made me like realize things about myself that like I hadn't really been able to put into words before, like things that I hadn't really thought about before. It really made me think about things related to identity and like just so many things about asexuality that are so necessary to talk about and think about. I think that absolutely anybody, regardless of your sexual orientation, will find things in this book that are interesting at the very least, but also I think that people will connect to a lot of stuff in this book, no matter what. Like there are things that are going to make sense to you and really like help you kind of understand things about yourself and also understand what it is to be asexual, because people, I think I would definitely have a misunderstanding of a lot of things about the ace spectrum for sure. I don't pick up nonfiction very much. I should more, but this was like by far one of the best nonfiction books I've ever read. I just loved it. Next up, I have another very popular, very highly acclaimed YA contemporary, and it is Firekeepers Daughter by Angela Chen. This is, if you have not heard of it, a book about an indigenous girl who lives in Michigan, I believe, and she gets kind of wrapped up in a mystery. I don't want to give too much away about this book. It's kind of sectioned off into different parts, and like every single part is its own arc. It's a really long book, but you're not going to want to put it down. It deals with a lot of heavy topics with race, with the main character is half white and half indigenous. Her identity with that, the sexism that she faces, and there are definitely trigger warnings in this book for like sexual assault and things like that. There is a lot to do with drug abuse and the horrors that come with drug addiction, and how that like infects a community, and like the response against it, and how that can be like good and bad in different ways. There's a lot of stuff in here about the criminal justice system and like how that ties into like every single thing that I've mentioned so far. Like it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on in this book. It is very mature. Actually, did I say it's YA? I actually would consider this to be new adult. I think that it's classified as YA, but the main character, I believe, is out of high school, and the themes and content in this book are like very mature. I think that teenagers absolutely can and should read this, but it's like definitely an older teenage book, early like 20s new adult sort of like it's in that area. It was very emotionally hard-hitting. Like, I absolutely will cry reading this book. It was really, really powerful, really good. All of the like social stuff that was going on is like super interesting on its own, but it also has like this kind of mystery element to it. Don't go in like expecting like a whodunit or something like that, because it's not quite that, but there absolutely is that like pushing the narrative forward with like an uncovering of something that's going on. And I love a mystery. I loved following that. It really kept me hooked. It really kept me like on track with this book, and it was just like, oh, it was so good. Absolutely loved it, obviously. The next one that I have is another YA contemporary. I actually haven't been reading as much YA, especially not YA contemporaries, like lately, but when they hit, they hit. And this book absolutely hit. This was one that I read more recently. It's called We Deserve Monuments by Jazz Hammonds. This is actually YA because the characters are in high school. It is about this girl and her parents, and they decide to move in with the main character's grandmother, who is reaching the end stages of her life, and they need to provide care for her and like kind of figure out everything going on in her life and figure out how to deal with that looming death that they think will be happening. The grandmother has a really bad relationship with her daughter, the main character's mother, and they like haven't really been in touch. This main character is kind of uncovering all this stuff about her family, and it was a fascinating journey to go on. There's so much in this book about like intergenerational trauma and how that gets passed down, particularly regarding racism and like the historical aspect of this book, and like thinking about generations and the way that racism of an earlier generation carries down and affects later generations in a family was like, whoa, it was so good. This book was it was a lot. Like, there were some scenes in this that were just like so heavy, but it was also really good. And like there were also elements that were so joyful, like the main character kind of finds these two friends, and like the developing friendship and their relationship was really lovely. It's also a queer book. This girl kind of forms a relationship with somebody else who's also a girl, and so it's definitely talking about that, especially in the context of being like a very conservative, like southern small town sort of environment, and how that is a lot different from the big city that the main character grew up in. Everything in this book was just really powerful. Like there were some scenes in this book that like made me just weep. They were so emotionally moving. It really took its time with everything, and really carefully crafted everything and really developed everything. It really made me like emotionally drained, but like in a really good way. Highly recommend. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I just read super recently, and it is totally different from pretty much everything else on this list. And it is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is a horror novel, and it is about this woman whose parents die. She's got to go back to her parents' house and, you know, deal with all of the aftermath of your parents dying. And it's like her relationship with her brother, which is a very bad relationship. Her mother was a puppeteer, and her house is full of puppets, especially clown puppets and clown dolls, which is 100% up my alley personally, as somebody who also collects clown dolls, and I love clowns. If you didn't know that about me, I love clowns. The second I realized like that was going to be like a major theme of this book, I was like, oh, okay. And I was really, really into it. But like truly, this book was so good, regardless of whether you are a clown girly like I am. I promise. It was so entertaining. It was like truly like a campy horror movie turned into a book, which I truly don't think I've ever experienced before. There were scenes that were like genuinely creepy and disturbing, and like the horror was really well done, and it was super messed up, and like it was gross and disturbing. Did a great job there. But then also it was like camp, and there were just scenes that were just goofy and so ridiculous and so funny, but like in the best way, where I was like cackling hooting and hollering. I absolutely loved it. It was just a wild ride. I loved it. I loved it so much. I genuinely like don't think I've ever read a book where early on in the book I was like, oh, this is a 5-star read. I never give books 5 stars, and I gave this book 5 stars, and like I knew it was going to be 5 stars pretty early on as I was reading it, and I kept being like, oh my gosh, like don't let me down, because this book is so good. And it really did not let me down. It was excellent all the way through. I loved it. Like, it was such a fun experience. I loved everything about this book. Like, it was just so good. I need to get more into horror now. Mexican Gothic kind of kicked it off for me, but this book was such a hit that like I need to find more horror, but I don't really know what my wheelhouse is, and I need to figure that out and like hone in on that. And that's that. Those are the 10 best books that I have read since I stopped talking to you guys about books. Every single one of those gets like high praise, complete endorsement. Please read them. If you have read them, let me know your thoughts about them in the comments, because I am very curious if people liked these books as much as I did, or maybe you didn't like these books and we just don't have the same taste in books. Entirely possible. Don't really know my other booktube plans other than the week of graphic novels, which is coming up July 16th through the 23rd, I think. You can check my announcement video for that. But that's upcoming, I think, whenever I get this up. I'll see you then. Otherwise, maybe I'll be back with something else. Maybe I'll do another Cleanse My TBR video, because that was kind of fun. And I could continue with that. But otherwise, I don't really know like what I plan to be posting on BookTube next. So if there's anything you want to see, let me know. Or if you don't want to see me at all, you can unsubscribe. I'm sure that will be happening as well. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. It's nice to be back, I think. Bye!